I just found out my wife of 10 years was secretly siphoning $250, $0 from our joint account to her sister's shady business. And now she's claiming I'm the one stealing after she started divorce proceedings and wants our house, which is worth $2 million, to be split equally. But she only contributed $50, $0. Hello, everyone. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Now let's begin the video, using a throwaway for obvious reasons with certain specifics modified to preserve anonymity. I never thought I'd be the guy sitting here, writing about how I found out my wife of 10 years was cheating on me. It all started with a gut feeling, you know. Nothing concrete at first, just little things that didn't add up. She'd come home late, smell like perfume I didn't recognize, and suddenly she was more interested in her phone than she ever was before. But what really broke the dam was when I accidentally stumbled across a series of bank statements hidden in her email drafts, stuff I wasn't supposed to see. It started small. I was checking our joint account to pay the mortgage, and I noticed a strange transfer of $250, $0. At first, I thought maybe it was a mistake or some kind of corporate investment we forgot about. But then I looked deeper. The money was siphoned out over the course of 6 months, and it was all going into her sister's shady business, something I'd never heard of until then. Her sister, Lisa, owned some sort of consulting firm, but nobody I knew had ever met her, and I knew for a fact her business was sketchy at best. The more I dug, the more I realized that my wife had been secretly funneling our money to her sister, probably to keep her afloat or to fund some shady deal. I felt my stomach drop. How could she do this? All those years, all those moments I thought we built something real and she was secretly stealing from us. The worst part was, she'd been lying about her spending habits, telling me she was saving for our future, that she was being careful with money. Meanwhile, she was lining her sister's pockets and probably making herself look good in the process. I was furious, but I also felt betrayed on a level I couldn't quite put into words. The trust I had in her was shattered, and I hadn't even confronted her yet. That's when I started noticing other signs. She was suddenly more defensive whenever I asked about money. Her stories about her whereabouts didn't add up anymore. She'd get defensive if I mentioned her sister or her business, brushing it off with a bitchy attitude. One night I caught her texting someone late at night, and she quickly deleted the message when I came into the room. The next day I found out she'd been secretly meeting someone, probably her lover, while I was working late or out of town. It all clicked into place: the late nights, the secretive phone calls, the suspicious withdrawals. She was cheating on me and she was stealing from us at the same time. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. How could I be so blind? I'd always thought we had a good marriage, that we trusted each other. Turns out I was just another fool in her game. I kept replaying the moments when she lied to my face, when she told me she loved me, but was out there screwing around and siphoning our savings. I couldn't believe I had missed all the signs for so long. I was angry, hurt, and deeply confused. How do you even process something like this? It's like a bad movie, but it's my life. So now, here I am, trying to piece everything together. The betrayal runs deep, and I know I need to act. I've already started planning my next steps, but I want to tell this story because I know I'm not the only one who's been like this. If I'd known what was really happening behind closed doors, I'd have cut her loose sooner. But now I want to be clear. I'm not a fool anymore. I've seen the truth, and I'm ready to face whatever comes next. After I found out about the siphoning and her affair, everything changed. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, and honestly, I didn't even want to be in the same room as her anymore. That night I stayed up scrolling through bank statements, looking at her texts, trying to piece together just how deep her deception went. The money was gone, completely drained, and I knew it wasn't just about the money. It was about trust, betrayal, and feeling like I'd been played for a fool for years. I decided I had to confront her, but I didn't want to do it impulsively. I needed a plan. I set up a meeting with my lawyer just to get an idea of what I was dealing with legally. The house, worth around $2 million, was supposed to be ours. I knew she'd want half, but she'd only contributed about $50, $0 over the years, so I was already bracing for a fight. Still, I needed to hear what my options were, especially with the evidence I had. The next day, I scheduled a talk with. She was in the kitchen when I got home, acting all innocent, like she didn't have a care in the world. I looked her dead in the eyes and dropped the bombshell. I told her I knew about the money, about her sister, about the affair. Her face flickered with a mixture of anger, surprise, and that fake bitchy smile she always had when she was trying to manipulate someone. She spun her story fast, saying I was paranoid, that I'd misunderstood that her sister's business was legit, and that I was just accusing her because I was insecure. But I wasn't buying it. I told her I had the bank statements, the texts, everything. Her excuses were flimsy, and she kept trying to turn it around, claiming I was the one stealing from her, that I was trying to ruin her reputation. She said I was just jealous, that I didn't trust her, that I was overreacting because I was insecure about losing her. She even had the nerve to cry and say she loved me, but I wasn't buying any of it. Not anymore. I knew she was lying, and I knew I couldn't stay with someone who was so dishonest. The confrontation was intense. I felt a mix of anger and heartbreak. I kept asking her why she did it, why she lied for so long. She shrugged, said she was just trying to help her sister, that she didn't mean for it to get out of control. But I knew better. It wasn't just about helping her sister. It was about her lying to my face, cheating on me, and stealing from us all at once. I was furious, but I knew I had to keep my cool. I told her I wanted a divorce and I wanted the house, or at least a fair split considering she only contributed a fraction of its value. She threw a tantrum, calling me names, saying I was the bad guy, that I was trying to take everything from her. She said I was the one stealing, that I'd been secretly hiding money, that I was a bad husband. But I knew the truth. I knew I'd been loyal, working hard, trying to build a future. Meanwhile, she'd been sneaking around, lying and stealing from us. That realization hit me hard. I'd been blind, but now I saw everything clearly. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying everything, the lies, the betrayals, the moment I found out she was screwing around. I felt sick, but also strangely relieved. I finally knew the truth, and I was done pretending. I decided I'd get a lawyer, file for divorce, and fight for what was rightfully mine. I wasn't about to let her walk away with half the house, especially since she only put in a tiny fraction of its worth. I knew she'd try to spin it, but I had the evidence, and I wasn't going to be the fool anymore. The next step was clear. I had to protect myself financially, gather everything I could, and prepare for the fight ahead. I was hurt, but I was also angry, and that anger was going to fuel my next moves. I knew she'd come back with lies, accusations, and probably try to twist things around. But I wasn't going to let her win. I'd been betrayed enough. Now it was time to take control. After I made the decision to move forward with a divorce, things escalated quickly. Of course, wasn't going down without a fight. She started spinning her lies even more aggressively. She claimed I was the one secretly siphoning money, that I'd been hiding assets all along, and that I was trying to ruin her reputation. She called me every name under the sun: cheater, thief, jealous loser, and threw in some tears just for good measure. Honestly, it was exhausting to listen to her. I knew she was lying, but I also knew I had to be strategic if I wanted to come out of this with some sense of fairness. I hired a lawyer who specialized in divorce and financial disputes. We started digging into her bank accounts, looking for any other signs of fraud or hidden assets. It didn't take long before we found more. Had been transferring money to some offshore accounts, probably to hide her assets. She'd also opened new credit cards under fake names, trying to cover her tracks. It was clear she'd been planning her escape for a while, just waiting for the right moment to strike. Meanwhile, I had to deal with her trying to turn the kids against me. She told them I was a bad person, that I was trying to take everything from her, and that I was the one cheating. It hurt, big time. My kids are everything to me, and watching her manipulate them hurt almost as much as her betrayal. But I stayed calm, knowing that I had the truth on my side. I wasn't going to let her ruin my relationship with the kids over her lies. I made sure to keep things civil, even when she was throwing accusations and trying to get the upper hand. One day, she showed up at my office, crying and begging me to stop the divorce. She said she was sorry, that she'd made mistakes, that she loved me and didn't want to lose everything. That was the moment I realized how much she was willing to manipulate to save herself. I told her I needed time to think, but inside, I knew there was no turning back. I had enough evidence of her cheating and stealing to fight her in court. I was ready to take her down, not just for myself but for the sake of my kids and our future. In the meantime, I started documenting everything. Every bank statement, every text message, every call, anything that proved her dishonesty. I also reached out to a private investigator to follow her around sometimes. I wanted to see if she was really telling the truth about her whereabouts or if she was sneaking around with her lover. The investigator confirmed my suspicions. She was still meeting up with someone late at night, and her stories about her business trips were totally fabricated. That was the final nail in the coffin for her credibility. As the weeks went on, I felt a mix of relief and anger. Relief because I finally had proof, and a plan, anger because I'd been so blind for so long. I felt like I'd been played for a fool, and now I was finally fighting back. I knew the legal battle wouldn't be easy, but I was determined. I wanted accountability. I wanted my fair share, and most of all, I wanted her to see that I wasn't going to be pushed around anymore. I'd been the good guy for too long, and now it was my turn to stand up for myself. The biggest shock came when she accused me of stealing the house, claiming I'd been secretly hiding money and assets that she didn't know about. She demanded an equal split of everything, even though she only contributed a tiny fraction of the house's value. I couldn't believe her audacity. I told her straight that I was going to fight her in court, that she wouldn't get away with this. She started screaming, calling me a greedy bastard, but I just looked her in the eyes and told her she had no idea what she was up against. I had the evidence, and I was ready to use it. Looking back, I realized how much my trust was broken. I thought I knew her, but I didn't. She was a different person behind closed doors, lying, cheating, stealing. I feel betrayed, but I also feel stronger now. I've learned a lot about what it means to be betrayed by someone you loved. It's a harsh lesson, but one I needed to learn. Now I'm focused on protecting myself and moving forward. The road ahead isn't going to be easy, but I know I'll come out of this stronger. And maybe, just maybe, I'll find happiness again someday. The legal process dragged on, and every day I felt the weight of it more heavily on my shoulders. Of course, kept up her act, pretending to be the victim, crying fake tears in front of the kids and trying to spin her lies to anyone who would listen. She was good at it too, but I had the evidence, and I knew how to use it. I wasn't about to let her walk away with half the house just because she threw a tantrum or accused me of stealing. My lawyer warned me that she'd try to drag this out, maybe even file counterclaims, but I was prepared for that. Meanwhile, she doubled down on her manipulation tactics. She started claiming I was abusive, that I was emotionally unstable, that I'd been cheating on her all along, utter nonsense. But she knew how to play her cards. She even hired her own lawyer, trying to muddy the waters and slow the process down. That's when I realized she was willing to do anything to get her way, even if it meant destroying what was left of our family in the process. One afternoon, I caught her sneaking out of the house again, this time with her purse clutched tightly and her phone glued to her hand. I followed her discreetly, and sure enough, she met with a guy in a parking lot. I saw them exchange a quick kiss before she got into her car and sped off. That was the confirmation I needed that she was still cheating, still lying. It fueled my resolve to see this through, no matter how painful it was. I also started to get my financial ducks in a row. I transferred most of my savings into a separate account, just in case she tried to claim I was hiding assets. I hired a forensic accountant to comb through our joint accounts and find anything she might have missed. It turned out she'd been funneling money into secret accounts, as I suspected. She'd been planning her escape for months, maybe even years. I couldn't believe I'd been so blind. The emotional toll was heavy. I felt betrayed, angry, and deeply hurt. But I also felt a strange sense of clarity. I knew I had to be strong, not just for myself but for the kids. I kept reminding myself that I deserved better than this, that I shouldn't let her manipulate me anymore. I started talking openly with my friends, family, anyone who would listen. I needed support, and I refused to let her control the narrative anymore. One night, I sat in my office going through all the evidence I had collected. I felt a mixture of relief and sadness. Relief because I finally had concrete proof of her betrayal, and sadness because I realized how much I'd lost: my trust, years of my life with her, and the illusion of a perfect marriage. But I also knew that moving forward was the only way to heal. I couldn't keep living in this nightmare. I had to face the facts and fight for what was rightfully mine. The biggest challenge was the house. It was worth a lot, and I knew she'd try to claim half of it, even though she contributed a fraction of the purchase price. I prepared myself for a tough fight in court, but I also knew I had the upper hand. The evidence of her cheating, her financial deception, all worked in my favor. I was ready for the showdown. I wanted her to understand that her lies and manipulations wouldn't get her what she wanted. I was done being the fool. In the end, I realized that this whole experience has changed me. It's made me more cautious, more aware of how people can hide their true selves behind a mask. But it's also made me stronger. I've learned that trust is fragile, and when it's broken, you have to fight for your own happiness. I don't regret any of this, because if I hadn't gone through it, I'd still be living in denial. Now, I know what I deserve, and I'm determined to get it. The court hearings were intense, and the lawyer was trying every trick in the book to drag things out. She kept claiming I was controlling, that I had been abusive, and even that I'd been secretly manipulating her finances behind her back. But I had the evidence: texts, bank statements, witness statements from the private investigator, and I made sure it all came out. My lawyer laid out everything, showing how I'd been siphoning hundreds of thousands of dollars, cheating on me, and lying about everything. During the hearings, kept crying, trying to look innocent, but it was clear she was desperate. She kept insisting she deserved half the house because she contributed emotionally, and because she was the mother of our children. I couldn't believe her audacity. She only put in about $50, $0 into the house, and I had worked my ass off for every penny. I told the court as much, showing how her contributions were minimal compared to what I had invested. The judge listened carefully, and I could tell she was unimpressed with theatrics. I think the judge saw through her manipulations. I presented my case clearly, emphasizing her betrayal, her financial deception, and her ongoing affair. I argued that she had no right to claim half of the house, especially since she'd only contributed a small fraction of its value, and that her actions had seriously damaged our marriage. After hours of testimony, the judge finally made her ruling. She awarded me full custody of the kids, which was a relief. Had no grounds to fight for custody, especially given her dishonesty and infidelity. Regarding the house, the judge ordered a division based on our contributions and the evidence of her financial misconduct. She awarded me the house outright, considering she only contributed a tiny part of the purchase price and had been siphoning money. Was furious, screaming and protesting outside the courtroom, but I felt a strange sense of victory. It wasn't just about the house or the money. It was about finally putting an end to her lies. In the aftermath, I felt like I was finally starting to breathe again. I took the kids and moved into a smaller place nearby where I could focus on rebuilding. Tried to get visitation rights, but I was cautious. I wanted to protect the kids from her manipulations and lies. I also began the process of rebuilding my finances, closing joint accounts, and making sure she couldn't access anything further. It was a long, exhausting process, but I was determined to start fresh. The most surprising part was her reaction after losing the court case. She was humiliated, and I think the reality finally hit her that her lies and schemes hadn't worked. She tried to come back, begging for a second chance, promising to change, but I saw through it. I told her I was done, that I'd moved on, and that I wanted nothing to do with her manipulations anymore. I didn't want her in my life or my kids' lives if she kept up her deceit. Looking back, I realize how much I've grown from this experience. It's been a brutal lesson in trust, betrayal, and resilience. I learned that sometimes the person you love the most can turn out to be the biggest liar and cheat. But I also learned that standing up for yourself, no matter how hard it gets, is the only way to truly move forward. I'm still healing, still rebuilding, but I know I'm stronger now. And honestly, I don't regret anything. I just wish I'd seen the signs sooner. But now I'm finally free and I plan to make sure my future is better than my past. Now that everything's settled, I've had some time to reflect on what happened. Honestly, I never thought I'd be the guy who gets betrayed like that, by someone I trusted with my life, my money, my future. But looking back, I realize I was too blind for too long. I overlooked the signs, ignored the little things because I wanted to believe in the marriage, in the woman I married. It's a hard lesson, but one I needed to learn. What's most surprising is how much I've changed. I used to be naive, trusting everyone too easily, thinking love could conquer everything. Turns out, love isn't enough when someone is fundamentally dishonest. I've learned to be more cautious, more aware of the red flags, and most importantly, to trust my instincts. If something feels off, it probably is. I've become more guarded, but also more confident in myself. I've realized I don't need someone who lies and manipulates to be happy. The experience has also taught me the importance of standing up for what's right. I could have just taken her word, let her walk away with half the house, and kept quiet about her cheating. But I knew that wasn't fair, not to me, not to my kids. I fought for justice, for honesty, and for the truth. That's something I'll carry forward. No matter how painful it was, I'm proud that I didn't back down, that I stood my ground. My relationship with the kids has improved a lot. I'm more present, more involved, and I refuse to let her lies poison them. They see me as their father, not the guy who was betrayed. I want to set a good example for them, that honesty and integrity matter even when it's hard. I tell them every day that they're loved, that they deserve the truth, and that they should always trust their gut. As for the future, I don't know exactly what's next. I'm taking things slow, focusing on my career, my health, and my kids. I've started dating again, but only cautiously, learning to trust again after being burned so badly. I know I'll be okay, even if it takes time. I've learned that life goes on, and sometimes you have to hit rock bottom to find your strength. If there's one thing I want anyone reading this to take away, it's this: don't ignore the signs of betrayal. Don't stay in a situation where you're being lied to or manipulated just because you're afraid of being alone or losing what you think is everything. Trust your instincts, gather evidence, and fight for what's right. Because at the end of the day, you owe it to yourself to be honest, to be strong, and to never settle for less than you deserve. I'm grateful I found out when I did. It hurt like hell at first, but now I see it as a turning point. A chance to rebuild better, stronger, and more aware. I'll never forget what happened, but I refuse to let it define me. Instead, I'll use it as a lesson. That betrayal can come from those you love most, but it's also an opportunity to become better. And that's exactly what I plan to do.